Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So tonight we got confirmation of what basically seemed inevitable at this point, is the Arizona Coyotes are no more. They're going to be heading to Salt Lake. This comes to us from Craig Morgan, who tweeted this out at around 9:04. Per multiple sources, the Coyotes have been informed their relocation to Salt Lake City is real. It will be announced April 17th on the date of the Coyotes' final home game at Mullet Arena. And obviously, this seemed inevitable considering what Frank Saravalli reported 2 days ago. First, he talked about the schedules, how they were making one schedule for Arizona, as well as one schedule for Salt Lake City as a contingency because it was a real possibility. Then later in that day, he tweeted that sources, NHL, Arizona Coyotes, and Smith Entertainment Group, obviously the guy that owns the Utah Jazz, had made significant progress on the framework of an agreement to relocate the Coyotes to Salt Lake City. Now it looks like a pretty much a done deal. I can't see anything in the 11th hour happening. They somehow lock up an arena. The Arizona Coyotes are moving to Salt Lake City. If you've been following me for a while, you know that me personally, I think this is the right move for the NHL, as well as it being a solid move for the players. So we're going to break that down now. First off, what Bettman decided in this, why he decided what he ended up doing when we all thought that he was in love with Arizona, that he was never going to give up on them, as well as what led to this downfall of the Arizona Coyotes. Hint, hint, it's more so based on the ownership than per se the market. They have some pretty fantastic fans. Then what to look forward to them in Salt Lake City with a new owner, or an owner that as an NBA fan, is pretty familiar with and like a lot, as well as Arizona going forward. Can they potentially have an NHL team down the line? So let's get into it. First off, when looking at this from Gary Bettman's perspective, I think he just finally came to the realization with last year's vote getting dumped. I think when you look at it, when the Tempe Entertainment District got denied by voters in the vote back in last May, I think that was kind of the last breaking point for this franchise. So when they scrambled to kind of put these arena plans together out of nowhere, less than like 6 to 7 months, kind of had to scramble to put them together. Bettman just didn't fully believe in it. And also the fact that they would have had to play at Mullet Arena for another 3 to 4 years. That would have just been far too embarrassing. The Arizona Coyotes had to play 5 to 6 years in Mullet Arena. At some point, he had to pull the plug because, again, they don't even have their current arena plans. That was just insane that they announced it a week ago at this point, and now they're just completely moving. Their arena plans, they needed to buy the land in a June 26th auction, so it wasn't even a guarantee. It's not like they had the land, oh, it's going to take 3 to 4 years. They still needed to buy the goddamn land. There was already complications with mayors saying that they didn't want the arena being built. So Gary Bettman finally pulled the plug. He had to. He really had to. This doesn't mean that Arizona is the worst market of all time, but when looking at it, it just was finally time. The main reason why this happened, obviously, is Alex Morello is an absolute clown. He's an absolute clown. First off, the team got kicked out of goddamn Gila River Arena, which not the best arena of all time, but did seat a respectable like 16,000 people because they were just ran so poorly when looking at it. Apparently they weren't making payments on time, as well as just not being profitable, that they'd rather just rent it out to concert venues and all that stuff instead of having the Arizona Coyotes there. And I think when looking at this, the management was just so disappointing in terms of the on-ice product. Especially, they made the first round of the playoffs once, and that was only because of the COVID year. I believe they weren't in a playoff spot in 2020 with 74 points in 70 games. They just were like the 9 or 10 seed and won the play-in. They did not have a good product on the ice, in part because Morello didn't want to pay his players. When looking at it, they had so many goddamn players that were just dead contracts. Looking at it like a Shea Weber, a Brian Little, he wasn't willing to put money into this team. They had so much money to spend, and they just wouldn't do that. They would just get to the cap floor with those contracts that I just showed you, and it's just unacceptable as an owner. He really just wanted to buy the team and eventually build a casino. That's what everybody's saying, reporting around him. The whole thing to building the arena was getting a casino. The team was more of just a roundabout way of getting that, because apparently you need a sports arena to build a casino on the same land, something like that. That's what I read on the Arizona Coyotes. But Morello was just never serious about this team, which is why I'm very optimistic with this team heading to Salt Lake City, heading to a guy like Ryan Smith that has been so energetic with the Utah Jazz. Now, the Utah Jazz are going through a pretty deep rebuild, and I think it's going to be a very successful rebuild. They got 5 goddamn first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, got an absolute pack haul for Donovan Mitchell, Lauri Markkanen. They might trade. Not NBA talk, not an NBA channel. But when looking at it, The Utah Jazz with Ryan Smith, they have reinvigorated passion into their franchise, even though they are rebuilding. Ryan Smith is basically, not to make another NBA analogy, but you guys probably know who Mark Cuban is. He's basically Mark Cuban in the 2000s, really energetic guy, young-ish guy. He's in his like late 40s or early 50s, and he cares about winning. When looking at Ryan Smith with this team, with the cap space that they have this offseason, $41 million, man. They could make serious splashes, and honestly, although it will be a little bit tough to convince free agents, I think the pitch is pretty easy. You got studs like Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller, Dylan Gunther, if he played the full season, is on pace for like 60 goddamn points. Michelli, Connor Ingram's emerged as a goalie. They have a very exciting young core, as well as adding another top 6, top 7 pick. So Ryan Smith can kind of have this team cooking at a decent level next season. Even this year, before their 14-game losing streak, they were firmly battling for a wild card spot in the Western Conference. I think they were going to end up going to make it. No, but next season, another year of development, this team can be really competitive. And if Ryan Smith spends like he's talking in this process, they can easily be a playoff team. And if they're going to have a far bigger arena because they're going to be playing in the Delta Center, obviously, I think there is going to be some obstructed seats with the Delta Center. It's not fully a hybrid NHL NBA yet. They're going to get that in 2030 when the Olympics happen, but they're still going to be able to fit like 14,000 people. So when you're comparing that to 4,600 seat Mullet Arena, that is obviously a massive upgrade. So if you're a Coyotes player, I tweeted this out. It sucks to move your family, 1,000% understand that, but you got to be psyched to head to Utah with an owner that actually cares about winning, and they have so much money. And again, not saying the Arizona Coyotes fans aren't going to be weren't very, very good. They deserved far better, but the Utah fans are going to go absolutely nuts getting their second pro sports team, especially in more of a hockey-conducive climate. I think that will definitely help them out in some degree. So when looking at it, they're going to have a rabid fan base off day one. Will that keep up in year 2, 3, 4? Probably depends on how good the team is. But you get a fresh, clean start with a very explosive, very encouraging young core with an owner that actually cares about the on-ice product more so than potentially building a casino. And again, they were ran like the goddamn Oakland Athletics, where they would get the league rev share, and that would keep them afloat. That would make them profit. They wouldn't spend that much on it. So when looking at it, I think if you're an Arizona Coyotes player, sucks to some degree. You definitely have relationships, family in Arizona, but moving to a new arena, moving to a new location, considering how poorly ran the Arizona Coyotes was, you got to be pretty exciting. And lastly, let's look at the Arizona overall market. I think it can be successful. When looking at it, it's the 10th biggest market in the entire United States. Yes, it's not perfect for hockey because it is the desert. They call it the goddamn desert dogs. But I think down the line, with a better team, with better ownership, it can work. There's far too many people. If you put out a winning product, because again, you see what the Vegas Golden Knights, no team's going to do what the Vegas Golden Knights did in terms of making the Stanley Cup final in their first season and then being a goddamn contender basically every single year besides that winning the Stanley Cup. But if they get an expansion team in 5, 10, 15 years from now and have some success right out of the gate and actually have solid ownership, solid management, I think the Arizona Coyotes can work. And obviously, we've seen the overall impact on hockey in Arizona. You got guys like Matthews and Nyes turning into legit NHL players. Obviously, Matthews is more than an NHL player. He's got the top 5 player in the NHL. But there's plenty of appetite for hockey in Arizona. I think that it goes without saying. So I think in 10, 15, 20 years, I think the NHL will probably go there. The only 2 markets I would maybe go to before Phoenix again would be Atlanta, because they have an even bigger metro population. Let me check that again. Yeah, they have 6 million people, 6.3, as well as Houston. I would probably go to Houston before I went back to Arizona. But beyond that, if it's Quebec City or Arizona again, I'm probably going Arizona just because there's 6 times, 7 times more people, or even a Milwaukee that's basically right next to Chicago. I think Arizona will get an NHL team. What scares me with this scenario, though, is apparently, according to David Pagnotta, who's not the most reliable insider, but he does have some sources, he said if the Coyotes move and Morello Group secures the land in that auction I was talking about before on June 26th, the NHL is likely back in Arizona for 2027, 2028. So if he gets the team again, that is going to be a goddamn disaster. I'm hoping the Arizona Coyotes low-key lose that land auction if they're still going to bid on it in late June, just because if Alex Morello runs it back, that could be a disaster. But if they got good ownership in Arizona, I don't see why they couldn't be successful. Call me crazy, call me an Arizona defender. I think at the end of the day, the market can potentially work. And overall, it is disappointing for Arizona hockey fans. It definitely stinks for you. But in terms of the NHL on the whole, as well as the Arizona Coyotes, honestly, team right now, I think this is what's best for them. It's very unfortunate circumstances. If they had their own arena, I'm sure they wouldn't be moving right now. But with getting kicked out of their arena, failing to get that arena in Tempe, as well as having to wait another 3 to 4 years to potentially get this new arena, if it did go down, you just can't wait that long. You can't wait almost 6, 7 years to get a new arena in the goddamn NHL, 4,600 seats. They probably shouldn't have done it even in the first place. Looking back on it, but the Arizona Coyotes, really crazy. We're having relocation in the NHL in the year of 2024. We got to figure this out. There cannot be any more. Please, Winnipeg Jets, step your game up. Even though they have been selling more and more tickets of late coming up to the playoffs. But let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Do you think it's the right decision to move the Arizona Coyotes? Do you think Utah's going to be Salt Lake City is going to be a good market? And where else do you want NHL expansion, or do you just not want NHL expansion at all? I hate to break it to you, NHL expansion is coming. I understand if you don't want it, but it's coming. I'll be seeing the next one.